give an all-round perspective on how to thrive, we have a very renowned expert from outside India, Marc Effron, and another equally respected business person from India, SHRMIAC, as our keynote speakers. Marc, as a founder and president of US-based Talent Strategy Group, helps the world's biggest brands and most successful companies maximize the quality and impact of their workforces. He is the author of the best-selling book, One Page Talent Management, often called the Talent Management Bible. Companies worldwide apply its discipline of science-based simplicity, accountability, and transparency for securing talent in the most competitive recruiting marketplaces. He is also a gifted teacher and co-founded the Talent Management Institute at the University of North Carolina. We are so fortunate to have him here today to talk about the 8 steps to high performance, which is also the subject of his new book by the same name. Before I call Marc on the stage, would like to thank Salto Diffie for partnering us to get Marc as our keynote. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Marc Effron.
There we go. Are you ready to thrive? Let's try that again. Are you ready to thrive? Okay, you have a day and a half of great speakers, great content, great sponsors, and great presenters. So I want to see a lot of energy this morning because you're going to need it to last over the next couple of days. I'm thrilled to be back in India. I've been coming to India since 2003 and working with some of your larger companies. And one of the things that struck me when I first came to India was the entrepreneurial, and we'll call for SHRM, the thriving spirit that I've seen here. And what I saw was lots of companies and lots of people who wanted to be high performers. And I always found it very inspiring to be able to be here and interact with Indian firms and with all of you. So very happy to be back. And today we're going to have a very fast-paced half-hour discussion about how you can continue to thrive, or what we'll call how you can continue to be a high performer. Let's get my slides up here. There we go. There we go. So what I do is spend most of my time helping organizations and individuals to get their maximum performance level. And a few years ago, I wrote a book that Ashwal mentioned called One Page Talent Management, and I was very happy that that book got a lot of that information out to organizations. A lot of HR leaders took that book and applied it. But what I found was that there was a lot of information out there that was confusing. And so I wrote a new book called 8 Steps to High Performance, so trying to get right to the consumer about, well, how can we thrive as individuals? And you might ask yourself, Marc, do we really need another management book? Aren't there already 1,000 management books out there and 1,000 new ones coming out every year? Hasn't every topic already been written about? And my view is there are lots of books out there, but the challenge is there are lots of things that are confusing about the information that currently exists, starting with, I'm a big fan of the science in our field. There is so much wonderful science that can tell us exactly what to do to be high performers, but most books aren't written about science. They're written about personal points of view or examples or things you did in your company. They aren't based on that good, hardcore academic proof. The other challenge is there's so much information and it's not integrated, it's not put together. So the average leader, the average talent, doesn't understand what matters and what doesn't matter. So no one's ever really put together all of the facts about what truly will allow you to be a high performer. And finally, a lot of those books are written by people who've never been in jobs like yours. They're lifetime consultants, they're professors, they're very smart people, but they might not have the practical experience that allows them to translate that science and good insights into practical advice that you can use every day. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to take all those things and say, well, let's have a book that's focused on science, let's make it really practical, and let's make sure it integrates all the great knowledge out there about how everyone can be a high performer. Now, we're going to put you to work today. Don't think this is me talking for a half hour. You're going to have on your chairs a little worksheet. You'll see this little worksheet. It says assessment and planning at the top. And on that worksheet, you will see a number of questions that I would like you to fill out as we go along. This is going to be your self-assessment sheet. We're not only going to do a self-assessment, you're going to do a little peer coaching at the end to see how you can improve based on some of these 8 steps. Let's start here. I mentioned I'm a big fan of the science. And when I started to think about this book, what I really wanted to make sure was that it was as true to the science as possible, the science of human performance. And so over the past 3 years, I read more than 2,000 academic articles. And if you've ever read an academic article, you understand most of the time it's like chewing on dry cardboard. So it was not the most entertaining way to spend my time, but it was very helpful in understanding what's the breadth of information out there. What are people claiming actually helps to predict high performance? And what I found was that you could divide all of that knowledge into 2 big buckets. What I call the fixed 50%, things you can't change, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment, and the flexible 50%, about half of what you can change. So about half of our performance at work are due to factors that we can't do a single thing about. And that includes things like our level of intelligence, our personality, not our behaviors, but our personality, our socioeconomic background. Maybe you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Maybe you were not. You can't do a darn thing about that when you get into the working world. And finally, even your looks, even the way that we look can influence our performance at work. We can't do a darn thing about any of that. The subtitle of my book is Focus on What Matters, Ignore the Rest. Ignore these things. You can't do a darn thing about it. So about half of our contribution at work we can't change, but that leaves 50% that we can change. And that's what the 8 steps are all about. But before we get into the 8 steps, underlying each of these steps is the high performer mindset. You are never going to be a high performer unless you have a high performer mindset. And I find there are 3 components to that high performer mindset. The first is recognizing high performers work more than others. High performers work more than others, just flat out. They put in more time. Now, sometimes when I say that, people respond and say, well, Mark, I work smart, not hard. Okay, great. You'll work smarter and harder than others. So first is you're going to put in more time. Second, you're going to have to sacrifice. High performers engage in fewer of the things that they would like to engage in outside of work. They might spend less time with their families, less time on their hobbies, less time focusing on their favorite sports team. High performers sacrifice other things to be able to spend more time at work. And high performers understand that performance is relative. If I hit 110% of my goals, Coretta hits 130% of her goals, Achal hits 150% of her goals, well, we all overachieved, I'm the lowest performer in the group. High performers understand performance is always going to be compared to someone else. So before we even think about the 8 steps, the first question, and the first question on your worksheet is, do I have that high performer's mindset? Now the good news is, you don't have to be a high performer. People live wonderful, happy lives, have great families, are members of the community in a very productive way, and aren't high performers. It's a choice. But if you want to make that choice, let's talk about how you can get there faster than everybody else. 8 steps. Let's start here. Set big goals. Now, this may seem really obvious, but most people are nowhere near as good at this as they should be. What does the science say about this? It says that bigger goals deliver bigger results, meaning we are hardwired to respond to a bigger challenge with more effort. If you're setting bigger goals, it will propel you to bigger results. The challenge is you can't have 10 big goals. You need to focus that energy on a few things that really matter. So bigger goals and fewer goals, the view is, let's start here. Ask yourself, what would it take to deliver twice next year what you delivered this year? What would it take to deliver twice next year what you delivered this year? Now, you might say, Mark, that is an absolutely ridiculous question. I am already more busy than I ever have been. I have maximized my time. Suspend disbelief for a moment. What would it take? What activities would you have to eliminate? What skills would you have to build? What behaviors would you have to change? What would you have to prioritize in your life? It's amazing the clarity of thinking it drives to challenge yourself around what would it take to deliver twice next year what I delivered this year. And figure out how do you focus those goals. Most of us list a lot of activities. If you're in your workplace, when you're asked to fill out a goal sheet, you probably list a lot of things that you do. But what's the big contribution you're going to make? What's the big promise you're going to make? And I actually like calling goals promises. That may sound like a cute word trick. It's not intended to be. We all have goals, and we try to make our goals. That's fine. But how many times do you make a promise and not fulfill that promise? I would much rather hear from you, what are the 3 big promises you're going to make to your organization next year about the consequential things that you're going to do to deliver? So step 1, set big goals. You have a little, on your worksheet, you have a question, yes, no, ask yourself if you have a few. Let's move on to behave to perform. The good news is science tells us that both how to succeed and how to fail is very well known. But I will suggest knowing how we fail and correcting for that is far more important than worrying about our strengths. Our strengths will take care of themselves. Our weaknesses and our derailers will not. So we need to focus on what are the proven derailers. What is proven to derail our careers? And luckily there's been a lot of research done around that, and those smart scientists have categorized this into 11 different derailers. There are 11 different ways that we can derail our career. Now, those derailers are essentially part of our core personality. Now, by core personality, what I mean is, think about your hair when you woke up this morning. Think about your hair when you woke up this morning. It probably did not look like your hair looks now. It probably was a little bit scary. And if you had all come with your hair untouched, it would probably be a very scary looking audience. But what you did is you said, I know that other people don't want to see me this way, or I don't want to see my hair this way. I'm gonna slick it back a little bit so it looks a little bit smooth, and I will present the me that I want other people to see. Your derailers, think of your derailers as that hair when you wake up. It's your natural hair. You can't do a darn thing about it, but it's not necessarily the way that you want to present yourself, because if you did present yourself that way, people might want to take a step back. Derailers are the exact same thing. It's your core personality coming out in a very pure form. Now, you've probably layered things on top of that core personality over time to make it easier to tolerate. You kind of slicked back that core personality. But sometimes those derailers still appear. Those derailers are going to appear when we're under stress. Those derailers are going to appear when we're with our friends and we've let our guard down. And there are basically 3 different ways that we can derail. We can derail by engaging in behaviors that cause people to want to move away from us. So, for example, 4th bullet down, reserved. If you're reserved, you might be someone who, you're more of an introvert, you like to work quietly in your office, you don't interact with that many people. Nothing wrong with that, but the challenge is, if you engage in those behaviors, people might not know you that well, they might not understand what you're working on, you might surprise them with the activities that you're doing, with what you're producing. That might cause other people to take a step back. Hey, that guy's not really predictable. I don't want to spend a lot of time with him, and I certainly don't want to promote him because we're not kind of sure how he interacts with others. So one way that we derail is we engage in behaviors that cause people to want to move away from us. Another way that we derail is we engage in behaviors that feel like we're moving against people. That first one, bold. Bold behaviors are just what they sound like. Bold behaviors are that person who's always waving their hand around in the meeting. They've got great ideas. They know they're great ideas, and they cannot wait to tell you about their great ideas. As you may suspect, you might want to. That feels like they're moving into your space. They're moving against you, and that might be something that undercuts your ability to be a high performer And finally, there are behaviors called moving towards behaviors. These are kiss-up behaviors. These are things that you do to make other people like you, like I'm going to follow the rules. Well, diligent, that last one, I know might be difficult to see from the back. Diligent is the final one listed. Diligent is I'm always going to do what my boss asks. I'm going to be, if Achal is my boss, whatever you want, Achal, whatever you say, I'm going to do exactly what you want. Now, that might seem fine until my team comes to me and says, hey, Mark, can you go to Achal and ask her if we can do X instead of Y? Well, I don't want to disturb my relationship with Achal. And moving towards people, trying to ingratiate. So there are a few big ways, 3 big ways that we can derail. Fixing those derailers is a far more important step to being a high performer than focusing on your strengths. Fix those derailers. So on your sheet, second question, do you understand your derailers? Do you have a plan around them? Third question, grow yourself, or third step, grow yourself faster. I think most of us know that experiences are what matters, but it's not just experiences that are going to help us. It is the adversity and diversity and visibility of those experiences. Meaning, it's not simply about having one great experience, it's about having many different types of challenging experiences. It might be different markets, small teams, large teams, turnaround environments, different functions. So diversity of experience. Adversity of experience. Experiences are much more powerful the scarier they are. If you're scared about the experience you've been put into, you're likely going to learn a lot more from it. And if lots of people are watching that experience, it's going to make it much more powerful for you as well. If you know that the CEO is going to pay attention to that experience that you're in, you're going to ensure that you're delivering at an incredibly high level. So adversity, diversity, but also learning from that experience. Most of the time, we don't structure learning around our experiences. We get put into a big experience, but we never ask ourselves, what do I want to learn from this experience? We don't ask people during the experience, hey, do you think I'm getting better at this particular area that I'm trying to learn in? And at the end, we don't sit down with someone and say, have I learned what I wanted to learn from that experience? It's not just the experience, it is about how can you extract the maximum amount of learning from that experience. And what I find is a helpful way to think about experiences is really just charting them out and saying, do I understand the functional experiences that are going to help me to grow? Let me ask some smart people in this function. Help me understand the few big building blocks that I need to have to be successful in this area. Ask your HR leaders, ask renowned folks in the field, what do you think are the experiences that build a great HR leader? So you'll want to understand what are the few functional experiences that matter. You're also going to want to understand, though, what are the few big management experiences that are going to be effective? Do I need to manage a big team? Do I need to move around the globe? What are those management experiences that are going to build my resume value faster than others? So a planned and conscious approach to experiences is going to grow yourself faster. Growing yourself faster allows you to be a high performer. Connecting. Introverts like me, and I am an introvert, hate the thought of connecting. But the science is really, really clear. It matters, and it matters in 2 different forums. One, it matters inside the organization, meaning if you are great at connecting with your peers and your boss, you're going to be more effective. We'll talk about what that means in just a moment, kind of what does connecting mean, but kind of what's the level of that connection. And in your field do you know? Let's take HR, for example. How many of the best people in this field do you know? Because building relationships with even 1 or 2 of those people is going to open up their network to become your network. So if you're building strong relationships with your boss and peers, what you're doing is you're building the reputation value you have in the organization. Your peers are going to be more willing to say good things about you, and building a positive relationship with your boss is going to allow you to get the accolades and the new experiences that your boss is going to give to the people who he genuinely trusts. And oftentimes we think, well, I don't want to kiss up to my boss. No one likes that type of behavior. There's a big difference between kissing up and becoming a friend of your boss. Bosses are people too. Bosses like people who say good things about them and who interact with them and are pleasant with them. Building that strong relationship with both peers and boss, scientifically proven to allow you to move forward faster in your career. I like structuring this. I'm a big fan of putting things on paper. The starting point is assessing what is the strength of my relationship with the key people I need to know. Have you recently assessed the strength of your relationship with your key peers? You might say, well, they're fine. I see them at the coffee machine. No. When was the last time you had a high-quality conversation with each of your peers? High quality isn't talking about a project. It's, hey, how you doing? How's the family? How's your favorite cricket team? What's going on with you? Getting to know that individual on a personal basis. I like, one, rating it to start with. Let's rate the relationship strength. How good is that relationship? Is it a 5, 4, 3, 2, or 1? Is it high, medium, or low? Anything other than high, you need to focus on immediately. If you do not have a strong relationship with every single peer, you better be having a cup of coffee or a lunch with them in the next 3 weeks to say, hey, we need to get to know each other a bit better. I haven't really talked to you a lot. Let's sit down and get to know each other. Planned networking is the most efficient way to ensure that you understand the strength of the relationship and that you're actively building towards it. It works the exact same way with external contacts. Who's the one person you really want to get to know in HR or in your field next year? Reach out to them today and just say, I read a recent paper that you wrote, loved it, would love to have a cup of coffee and talk about that. Or, hey, I have a question that I think you might be able to answer for me. Would you mind if we had a brief phone call? Let them know you're not looking for a job, you're not trying to sell them something, you genuinely want to get to know them. Okay, let's keep moving. Maximize your fit. Keep this mantra in mind. Change. Companies change faster than people change, meaning companies are evolving through their business cycle faster and faster and faster. And as they do that, the needs that they have from each of us change. So while companies are evolving quickly, we don't evolve normally as fast as our organizations do. And what that means is when those gaps occur, we don't fit as well with what our company needs. And the fit with companies' needs scientifically is proven to predict success. So the key is to think about, where is my company going? What are the needs it has in the future, and how close am I in my capabilities to those needs? What I'd like to do, and I will go through this chart fairly quickly, just because I want to make sure we're managing my time here, and I have 11 minutes left. Think about how you fit in two different ways. Let's think about how you fit with a company's strategy. And I like defining strategy going from, you're either trying to win in your company by being the most innovative, or you're trying to win in your company by being the most efficient. Let's use Amazon.com as an innovation company icon. Created e-tailing, moved into web services, moved into groceries, always at the cutting edge of innovation. I'll use the US firm Walmart as an example of efficiency, always trying to squeeze an extra penny out of every dollar. Is Walmart efficient? Yes, but they're efficient so they can be innovative. Is Amazon efficient? Yes, but they're efficient so they can win through innovation. Companies fit on that continuum. People fit as well. Jeff Bezos is a perfect fit as the CEO of Amazon in an innovative environment. But if I flew him over to Bentonville, Arkansas, where Walmart is headquartered, and made him CEO, he might not be the best fit for that particular role. So think about, where do you fit on that continuum? Where do you like to work? Do you love working in environments that are all about efficiency? Do you love working in environments that are all about innovation? The second axis, change. Is your company going through rapid change or minor change? This is great, but it's not sustainable. People who love working up there love lots of mess around them. They tend to be more communicative, more charismatic. People who are successful at the bottom get stuff done. Processes work because of them. Where do you fit? Map out on that chart. Where is your company today? Where is it going? And where are you? Are you a better fit for today, or are you a better fit for the future? So question 5. Let's move on to the fun stuff. Step 6. In promoting the book over the past month, this is the step that gets more screams than any other step. Science says most of us approach new situations in one of two ways. So let's say you walked into this room today. Science says you're going to think about the people in this room in one of two ways. One group of people scientists call chameleons. Chameleons are going to walk into this room and they're going to say to themselves, who should I be today to most successfully work in this room? Who should I be? I want to adapt to what this room needs from me. That's what a chameleon does. And science would say chameleons are very effective. The other choice is you're a bull. A bull just charges into the room and says, I'm here, look at me, I'm great. Bulls care more about being themselves and showing you themselves than chameleons who care much more about what do you need from me. Science would say the people who are able to adapt in those situations are going to be much higher performers. Now you might say, but Mark, I've read all these books on authenticity. I want to be an authentic leader. Well, there's nothing wrong with having a true north and believing in who you are. But even though you are all wonderful, special, unique human beings, I'm going to guess you might not be perfect in every single situation. There might actually be times when the genuine Mark doesn't need to appear, the authentic Mark doesn't need to appear, but a fake Mark needs to appear to be most effective. Here's an example. Most of us are going to go through two leadership phases in our career. One phase is called being an emerging leader. You need to emerge as a leader before anyone will make you a sustainable leader. An emerging leader means that you're kind of waving your hand around, you're saying, hey, I'm here, you're volunteering for new assignments, you're calling attention to your work, you're networking with people so they understand who you are. You're doing a lot of things that call attention to you so that other people know you well enough to give you an opportunity to do other things. Now, some people might not like that behavior. Some people might feel that's a fundamentally wrong behavior to call attention to yourself. Science would say introverts are bad at that. Women also engage in that behavior slightly less than men do. The challenge is that behavior works. And so at some point in your career, you might need to simply say, look, I don't believe in that type of behavior. I don't like people who do that type of behavior. But I understand that's an effective behavior. I'm going to fake that behavior for a while until I can move into a different phase. The second piece is being an effective leader. An effective leader is what many of us would think about as kind of that stereotypical leader. They manage their team well, they're humble, they're motivational. But let's say you're great at being an emerging leader. You love waving your hand around. You love getting attention. It might be difficult to step back and say, hey, I'm going to let my team take the front seat. You might need to, for a while, fake being an effective leader. You might need to sit on your hands and cover your mouth when you're in a team meeting, even though you know you have the right idea and you cannot wait to tell everyone that great right idea. You might actually need to fake, hey, I'm going to be an effective leader in this situation, even though I genuinely think that I have the better answer than all the ones I'm hearing. Now, people say, well, but you'll be able to tell that they're fake. Fake behaviors are obvious. Science says no. Science says when we try to engage, when we try to fool people about our core personality, we're actually pretty darn good at it. In fact, someone mentioned this. I was in a meeting last week and someone said, well, everyone will know if I fake my behavior. And someone else in the group said, well, have you ever cried at a movie? Have you ever cried in a movie? And the person said, well, of course I've cried in a movie. But you knew they were actors. They were acting. Yeah, but somehow they convinced you that you should cry and have emotions because of their acting. I said, yeah. Okay, sometimes you just need to act. Sometimes you need to be Shah Rukh Khan or whoever your favorite actor is and just say, I'm going to play a different role in this situation because I know it's the more effective way to behave. So faking a behavior doesn't mean, I'll change a little bit. Faking a behavior says, I'm going to engage in a fundamentally different set of behaviors because I know it's going to make me more effective for a period of time. It doesn't mean become a fake person. It means be the genuine you, but understand that might not be the perfect you in every situation. Fine. Step 7, commit your body. I swore when I started doing research for the book that I would find out that it was all about exercise. Exercise was the key thing you could do for your body to improve your performance at work. It would give me an excuse to go to the gym an extra day. That would make me very happy. What does the science really say? The science says it's all about sleep. Sleep is the foundation for high performance. And it's much more about the quality than the quantity. A lot of us worry about the quantity of sleep. Science would say it's all about the quality of sleep that you get. The challenge is that the quality advice sounds a little unrealistic. You should sleep in a cool, dark room with no noise, no pets present, no device reading ahead of time. And that sounds like a very idealistic world. So maybe you can try and maximize a few of those, but we're probably never going to be perfect on quality. And on quantity, the advice is a little bit challenging as well. It says things like, well, you should get 6 to 10 hours of sleep. Well, that's a 4-hour difference. I can do a lot with those 4 hours. So, what do I really need to do? The science would suggest the right answer is about 6.5 to 7.5 hours. But if you don't get the right quality or quantity, there's also great research to say, how do I make up for that? It suggests that making up for bad quality, 10-minute nap. Literally, these scientists have studied every nap length. What a great job studying naps. They've studied every nap length from 10 minutes to 20 minutes to 5 minutes. 10 minutes, they found, is the perfect amount of time you need, no more than that. Quality, our old friend caffeine. We always knew it woke us up, and the science would say, yes, it's actually proven if you get low quality or low quantity sleep, caffeine is the most effective cure. Most of us ignore this. Most of us ignore that sleep matters. I guarantee you none of the other steps that we've talked about today are going to work if you are sleep deprived, if you don't have the right quality. And then finally, especially for all of you, my friends in HR, we need to both personally and for the people we support do a much better job of avoiding the distractions of the fads that come along with regularity. Now, we should avoid those fads because they distract us from what really does work. They distract us from the other steps we've just talked about. And some of these fads may be things that you really, really like. Strengths or grit or power posing. Things that really don't have a lot of science that suggests they work. We know what works. Big goals, the right behaviors, networking, connecting, growing yourself. These things are proven to work. There are a lot of other things that do not likely have as much science behind them as you might think. The more we can help our leaders to understand there are things that are absolutely scientifically proven to make you a higher performer, do those first. And if you want to do something like these afterwards, that's just fine. But be a careful consumer. When someone comes to you with a claim that sounds too good to be true, hey, that thing that used to take 4 years now will only take 5 minutes. Just buy our tool. Be a careful consumer. Ask for some good conclusive science around that. So 8 steps. We have 2 minutes left. I want to engage in one very fast activity. Hopefully you have. You've done a little bit of self-assessment during this time. I would like you to turn to the person next to you. And I would like you to say, here's the one thing I'd like to get better at. So pick the one step you'd like to get better at. Pick the one thing within that step that you want to improve. So for example, for me, it's step 4, connect. And I want to get better at connecting with people outside of my network, so kind of external people. So the step is connect. The thing I want to get better at is connect with external people. I want you to pick that one thing, turn to the person next to you, and very quickly say, can you give me one suggestion for how to improve? You have that conversation, you switch it around, you do it to the other person, you're done. Let's do that in 2 minutes. Ready, set, go. What's the one thing you want to improve? Keep talking. Make sure it's quick advice, and then change partners. Quick advice. Okay, about 20 seconds. Get that last piece of advice out. Okay, let's start wrapping up. Okay, let's get restarted. Apparently an engaging activity, that is good. Let's get restarted. Okay, let's wrap it up, folks. Okay, let's wrap it up. I'm glad that was engaging. Hopefully you heard some really good advice. Wrapping up quickly. We know, folks, let's get restarted. More engaging activity than I thought. Okay, tell your neighbors to be quiet if they're still talking. Okay, we'll wrap up anyways. So here's the good news from the 8 steps. The good news is we know what matters. We know that there's a flexible 50% that we can control, and there's a fixed 50% that we can't. Don't worry about the fixed 50. You can't do a darn thing about your intelligence, your personality, your socioeconomic background. But there are 8 steps that you can control. But it starts with that high performer's mindset. Do you understand that you need to sacrifice, work harder, and always compare yourself to others in your pursuit of high performance? But recognize there are 8 scientifically proven steps that can help you to be a high performer. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you at the conference.